Phynne Belle is a San Francisco Bay Area poet, writer, and host of PGN's The Poet's Lighthouse, as well as Fincabulary online open mic and podcast. In 2021, she had her poetry included in 2 poetry anthologies, Sinew, 10 Years of Poetry in the Brew, and the Bronx Memoir Project Anthology, Volume 5. Phynne has one poetry collection titled Some Days Here. She is passionate about crafting events and programs that make the literary arts widely accessible. You can follow her on Instagram at Phynne Belle and on Twitter at Phynne Belle. Connect with her at Linktree. Clay will put the link in the chat. Please welcome Phynne Belle.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And thank you to Rivertown Poets. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here amongst creatives tonight. So let us start at a point where love is born. This poem is titled Blossom into You. Your words serene, fell condensation from your mouth upon my waiting neck and shoulders. Was this how you taught my life back into existence? Blooming, pistils stirring. The cold was possessive amnesia, its frostbitten vice around my womb. In the absence of a Persephone sun, I had already forgotten the taste of you. Upon my skin was the nectar of springtime. Deprived of your heart's rhythm, every palpitation, guiding my own, I was the Sampaguita furled inward. I was relearning the way of flowers. Though my bud clenched, holding its secrets for a breath's length, it quickened, blossoming upon your lips as you called me by my name. Your word after word were minstration singing upon my quivering filament, drawing them out one by one. Your word after word were adoration pressed patient fingers of breath upon me, coaxing each petal open. Ecstasy splayed, secret denuded to your eyes. I sighed into your rain's deluge, straining upward to be drenched through in every droplet. Your word after word rolled in gentle rumbles, thunder among places where each petal fold and met. You were not of torrential downpour. You were the summer rainstorm. I mingled with your petrichor after the rainfall. And we move on to love when it begins to recognize its own demise. This poem is called My Bones Rattle in This Cold. Under the weight of a love possible because, baby, we haven't even begun, but already we are crumbling. Though in 10 years, you will claim we haven't changed our tune since that winter of 2011, but I know better. Did you see what I did there? Are you still following, or did you dance and disappear like the steam on my radiator, darling? We play at transforming into a we and watch as that reality trembles. I sometimes wonder if stardust and magic can be a real thing like romantic people often say it is, as you lean your oven-hot body against mine, and I gather up my skirts all of a sudden to pull you up, urge you to pick daisies with me in the dead of winter and make them into crowns. We toast them on dollar store lighters and say that we feast every day like queens. In this future, I see sooner in my head. Lightheaded, I watch our loathing crawl underneath our skin. Do you see it too, babe? I think my hallucinations like to watch. Premonition lessons that come, because isn't that what harder and leaner call for? A sacrifice. You belch and scratch in front of the flicker of the telly, and my hair color leaches away in disgust simply by looking at you. Our dreams on injured legs. Not wings, still we dance, a broken dance, an old dance that we don't quite remember all the steps to, but we are compelled to reenact. Our fond memories of the heat of our youth. When did they puncture and release smoke? Let us vow to stay together now, lover, until an eternity, or at least until our skin and bones remain to burn, until our words are buried alongside the passionate oaths that we swore when we were something else and not this, when we still wanted this you and this me before we lost all our cares. Sometimes you don't really realize that you're starting this journey of grief. And you're just at that point of denial. And so this was when my mom was, this was a poem that I wrote when my mom was at the really, really advanced stages of her dementia before she passed away. This is called Loving What Remains. You no longer live in that house, but a presence, a likeness wants to linger on. It can no longer understand the limitations of walls, the expanse between bedroom and front door, the miles and miles between country of past and present. Old faces are familiar, ones from childhood, those who have passed on. You remembered me today, but only for a moment. And then I regress before your eyes, adult, child, infant. I live in the house next door. You insist upon it, and I seem to make you feel happy and secure. The people you see visit me now. They are here. You can count them sitting, observing on boxes, molded to corners, ready to walk across the ceiling, but they won't leave when you ask them to leave. We all left. Not far, but places are interchangeable and time can move forward and backward easily, but on a slippery track that is infinite, yet always finds itself at a dead end. You remembered me today because you had to urgently call me to tell me there's a cemetery next door and a body that is silent, and I try to speak the words that will reach you and make sense to you somewhere where you exist, present and lucid. When suddenly you still appear to be sitting there, but I sense you're being carried away on that rolling, endless track again, through rooms we have not seen in decades, to recollections you must find solace in. I listen patiently now. Even when your sentences peter out and you ask me why I called, what were we talking about? Can I call you later? My brother is at the front door. He is coming to pick me up in the pretty house next door. My hope. I cling to it for all my own scant peace. I know it well is an illusion. Your thoughts perch upon that track and race away each time I try to reach for them. But there is no mercy that this farce rewinds the creeping of decline. I'm in denial as I chase after them one moment longer. When you are in that process of grief, there is a time where you realize what an odd creature you've become when you're living side by side with your grief, and how your guilt makes your behavior this way of coping, and perhaps masking emotion. This is called Saint and Souls. Saints. On the day when the saints come marching, do they hope to add to their numbers? Do they tally with care those who fall short of godly? Do they consider the people left behind? Do they hear us in supplication? Do they judge when we seek intercession on our behalf? Do we heighten our grace and loosen our earthly hold when we pray and pray and pray with no end? Do they know if there is an Almighty on the other end listening? Do they have this on good authority? Do they base this belief on faith, or have they beheld him with too good eyes? Do they falter in good intentions when the Father is not present? Do they feel his love at all times, or sometimes doubt him and feel abandoned? Do they sin and sin and sin, assured of benevolence and forgiveness? On the day the saints come marching, will they hear and will they see? Souls, measure in even numbers, exact 6 feet give reassurance that we knew you once, that we placed a marker, as if each inch is comparable to a life lived, a breath taken. A breath I cannot chase and hold, a breath sometimes when I stop and think of you there, holding up the ground, wreathed in flowers. Are you the earth's mama too now? We visited you yesterday, the whole family, taking a trip to Grandma's new home. There were no wolves in the forest, only other families, bringing bouquets, bearing food, honoring their deceased in customs they do not question. We visited you yesterday. It was the Catholic feast of All Saints. Tradition dictates we keep those dear passed away company on the first day of this month instead of the second day with all the other poor souls. I'm not sure if Filipinos do this in excess of adoration or in a pantomime of religious ecstasy. Maybe after death, all is forgotten. The slate is wiped clean, and we are all worthy for the church to canonize. How much more time do I have, Sandy?
Then you still have a few minutes. A couple more poems would be fine.
Okay, thank you. As young girls, we began learning early on what expectations are placed upon us, and they are obviously sometimes unrealistic. I think life is what breaks the fairy tale spell. And then in turn, the spell poisons how we perceive what a good life is supposed to be. This is called spell broken. Descent down, down, down tower, poised in an excruciating slow motion spiral. No hair, color of corn silk, to stop my fall. To stop realization. Life holds no fairy tale. Suspicions abound in thick knot of veins. No nastrega, hands folded neatly in lap. Gnarled branches. Body, a sturdy dark tree trunk. In forests where orphans lose themselves in search of candy. Paying in innocence. Suspicions abound in days and bubbles floating above head, cinder maidens on her knees, on the slick floor. Each day you can read in the dank tea leaf suds, dull, pale water colorless. I held out hope. No magic answered. I was exempt from the miracle. Maybe the fishwives lulled us lazy, chopped our tails, plumed from our bodies, and we forgot ourselves, but thought we recalled this potion of wanting more, wanting everything, greedy for invincibility. I saw a lip color the other day, the tint and shade in creeping vine roses, and my mind glamored, my mind it glitched. Imagine the filter blood red smeared upon my lips. Prince Charming and his dutiful wife, mail order, made to order, single serve for your convenience. We would make a home together, and I'm told that it would be splendid. Except that who was doing the storytelling, who was spinning the lie and casting it on walls, shining sigil that we were safe inside the dream, except that whose dream, at whose expense? In all this while, we gouged out the sharp in two harsh corners, words left out of the enchantment, muttered under breath, patchwork falling on the floor. Snip, 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 snip. Isn't this monster conjured in the scraps? Isn't this beastly girl disgrace, a grotesque mauled thing of beauty? My eyes fell once more on Bramble, and already I forgot the lesson. Last night as I slumbered, breath suspended above my face, frost patterns built upon the air in the way that death and beauty dictate. My memories returned unbidden. They tiptoed their golden shoe deception to their whereabouts. Trepidation of the danceless, the flightless. Last night, as I slumbered, I took root beneath the earth, covering my nubile corpse. I discovered every spell cast and hidden, every face presented, good and masking evil, and every villain chastised in foolish youth, and how they all now wore me over their own skin, cloak red and fur of protection. Last night as I slumbered, I pricked my finger upon a spindle, believing myself awake. The pain confused me, the pain restored me, the pain dislodged tainted apples from my throat. Truth, rushing, bracing breath into my lungs, forcing the corset undone, causing the foot unshod. And then I wanted to close with one last piece. Sometimes the fairy tale is just never entirely squashed. Such are its tenacious tendrils. It crosses and chokes culture, and culture demands. So my question at the end is, will I ever cease the struggle to be this so-called perfect Asian daughter? Yeah. And so this is called Further Reflections on Not Being Pinay Enough. Pinay being the slang for Filipino. Look at me. I will never pass for a perfect bride or a perfect daughter. Can it be? I'm not meant to play this part. Now I see that if I were truly to be myself, I would break my family's heart. I say, look at me, but I don't truly want you to see. I want you to superimpose a pert nose, a figure, bayabas or sampalok tree slender, not and tall, not this stout ground-hugging trunk I was given. Though the salted water of the ocean, karagatan na tumitira sa tuktok ng ulo ko, blew easterly wind benediction in my direction, naming me native daughter, our collective colonial mentality could not spy me past the translucent, found inside mestisang bangos that also ordained that my crowning glory should be the exact replica of a regal baby's buhok palmolive. My tio punctuated my tropical fever initiation into a newborn life, brown, nestled among brown with the oddest premonition, seeing the sweat beads gather on my nose and making the prediction that I would marry early. But this still did not make me the store-bought picture of domesticity. I failed at that too. Too many pots stirring while singing top 40s, the stifling heat of a stovetop, my captive audience. This still did not make me a meek and obedient daughter. I couldn't comply, Daddy. I couldn't fashion this disaster into a child who you could show off to relatives and acquaintances. The world was seducing me and waiting outside our door. And the prepackaging of this provincial life boxed me in, cellophane wrapping tight. Wrong tale, naturally. I cannot be that Disney princess either. I am not meant to play this part. Who is that girl I see? I am careful concentration as I drink in her every feature. Why does her face take shape inside my mind but step just out of reach when I try to meet her? Does anyone know this impudent woman and why she finds it so amusing to be staring straight back at me? She's me. She is not. You are lying. Why is my reflection someone I don't know? Upon my pale arms are lovely scars of my own creation. Bawat saya merely blur the racier edges ng katawan ko. Somehow I cannot hide who I am, though I've tried. When will my reflection show who I am inside?